potential. Russia and the U.S. can offer each other so much in trade, digital, high-tech, and in space exploration. We see that Arctic cooperation is also very possible, and our international context, for example, between the Far East of Russia and the West Coast of the U.S. Overall, it's very important for our countries to turn the page, to go back to cooperation. It is symbolic that not far away from here, at the border between Russia and the U.S., there is a so-called international date line. I think you can step over, literally, from yesterday into tomorrow. And I hope that we'll succeed in that, in political sphere. I would like to thank President Trump for our joint work, for the well-wishing and trustworthy tone of our conversation. It's important that both sides are result-oriented, and we see that the President of the U.S. has a very clear idea of what he would like to achieve. He sincerely cares about prosperity of his nation. Still, he understands that Russia has its own national interests. I expect that today's agreements will be the starting point, not only for the solution of the Ukrainian issue, but also will help us bring back business-like and pragmatic relations between Russia and the U.S. And in the end, I would like to add one more thing. I'd like to remind you that in 2022, during the last contact with the previous administration, I tried to convince my previous American colleague that the situation should not be brought to the point of no return when it would come to hostilities. And I said it quite directly back then that it's a big mistake. Today, when President Trump saying that if he was the president back then, there will be no war. And I'm quite sure that it would indeed be so. I can confirm that. I think that overall, me and President Trump have built a very good, business-like and trustworthy contact. And I have every reason to believe that moving down this path, we can come, and the sooner the better, to the end of the conflict in Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. That was very profound, and I will say that I believe we had a very productive meeting. There were many, many points that we agreed on, most of them, I would say, a couple of big ones that we haven't quite gotten there, but we've made some headway. So there's no deal until there's a deal. I will call up NATO in a little while. I will call up the various people that I think are appropriate, and I'll, of course, call up President Zelensky and tell him about today's meeting. It's ultimately up to them. They're going to have to agree with what Marco and Steve and some of the great people from the Trump administration who've come here, Scott and John Ratcliffe, thank you very much. But we have some of our really great leaders. They've been doing a phenomenal job. We also have some tremendous Russian business representatives here, and I think, you know, everybody wants to deal with us. We've become the hottest country anywhere in the world in a very short period of time, and we look forward to that. We look forward to dealing. We're going to try and get this over with. We really made some great progress today. I've always had a fantastic relationship with President Putin, with Vladimir. We had many tough meetings, good meetings. We were interfered with by the Russia hoax. That made it a little bit tougher to deal with, but he understood it. I think he's probably seen things like that during the course of his career. He's seen it all, but we had to put up with the Russia hoax. He knew it was a hoax, and I knew it was a hoax, but what was done was very criminal. But it made it harder for us to deal as a country in terms of the business and all of the things that we'd like to have dealt with. But we'll have a good chance when this is over. So just to put it very quickly, I'm going to start making a few phone calls and tell them what happened. But we had an extremely productive meeting, and many points were agreed to. There are just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant, but we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there. I would like to thank President Putin and his entire team, whose faces, who I know in many cases, other than that, whose faces I get to see all the time in the newspapers. You're almost as famous as the boss, but especially this one right over here. But we had some good meetings over the years, right? Good, productive meetings over the years, and we hope to have that in the future. But let's do the most productive one right now. We're going to stop really 5, 6, 7,000, thousands of people a week from being killed, and President Putin wants to see that as much as I do. So, again, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much, and we'll speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one, but I could see it possibly happening. Thank you very much, Vladimir. And thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, we have all been listening to President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin there, both giving statements, notably Russian President Vladimir Putin speaking first. President Trump had less to say than his Russian counterpart, and also notable, we should point out, they did not take questions there. I'm joined by a few of my very talented and very smart colleagues here right now who can break down what we heard there, but I just want to go through a couple of the bullet points. He called this meeting constructive. He said that this was, it was a productive meeting. Any points were agreed to. There are some points that are left that are not that significant. Very few details here. Josh Robin is joining us now. Josh, what was your takeaway? That was mine, though. Very few details.
Very few details, and he contradicted himself. He said that there was a major stumbling block that was still left, and then at the end he said we had a minor stumbling block. Additionally, earlier in the week, he said the first thing he was going to do, Chris, was call the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky. He didn't. The first thing he did was come out and do this joint event with Vladimir Putin. I think that there's going to be a lot of head-scratching, frankly, right now in Kyiv and in NATO capitals around the world. As you mentioned, Chris, the introduction from Vladimir Putin was a lot longer. He talked about the shared history of the United States, talked about World War II. And I think very importantly, and people are going to seize on this, is that he talked at length about how if this had, because this happened under Joe Biden's presidency, that it wouldn't have happened if Donald Trump were the president. That is to say, he was repeating what Donald Trump has said on the campaign trail and subsequent to that, which is that this was Joe Biden's war, that this happened under Joe Biden and that he would have stopped it. I think that was frankly music to the ears of President Trump. The big questions right now is, what did the president say behind closed doors? Are there concessions? Is this something that's going to be palatable to the Europeans? One final note is that the president also repeated something which tripped him up in his first term, which is essentially saying that what the joint intelligence community found in the United States, that there had been an attempt by the Russians to inject uncertainty into the first presidential race of President Trump was a hoax, according to the president. Something he said before, but now he's saying it again with the Russian leader right next to him. I believe we have some of our other colleagues to talk with, Chris.
We do, yes. We've got our White House correspondent, Taylor Popolars, at the White House, political anchor Tim Boyum, Cassie Semyon covering the congressional aspect of this. Let's start with you, Taylor. You heard everything we just heard. A lot of words there, not a lot of specifics.
Yeah, honestly, what stood out, and Josh did a good summary, but I think what stood out was that this seemed to be a friendly interaction between President Trump and President Putin. We know that both men enjoyed, for the most part, their interactions during President Trump's first term, and that over the last few months, President Trump has been a lot more critical of President Putin than he had ever been before, because Russia's military has continued to attack Ukraine, specifically civilian targets in Ukraine. But I thought it was notable that both men basically spoke fondly of each other other at the start of these remarks. It's extremely notable. Neither took questions, especially because it was billed over and over again as a press conference that was either going to be joint or individual. And as Josh pointed out, President Trump wasted no time bringing up what he calls the Russia hoax and trying to relate to Putin in that way. Putin even started his remarks by saying when he greeted President Trump on that kind of red carpet area on the Air Force, on the military base, he said that he told the president it was good to see a good neighbor and a good friend. So I think this was really striking because President Trump has tried to talk tougher on Putin in the last few months, and it seemed in many cases that he was siding largely not only with Ukraine, but with European leaders at large. And I can't imagine many of them are feeling great after this because few details were shared. As Josh mentioned, the president has not called any of them yet before stepping out on this stage. And the president seemed to feel confident that he and Putin's relationship will be able to maintain itself and could potentially grow. One last point I'll mention is Putin, as a former KGB agent, has a lot of training in how to manipulate and on how to use charm offensives, especially for world leaders in tense settings. The fact that he brought several hundred Russian business leaders with him to Alaska to show President Trump he was interested in the U.S. and Russia doing more business together, I think was very intentional. Putin mentioned that in his remarks, and President Trump seemed open to that. So it's going to be really interesting to see, to try to learn some of the details. We're waiting for White House press pool reports because the pool said they're now moving. So it's really interesting how this has played out.
Well, if the pool said they're now moving, it might be interesting to see. Maybe we will actually get a few questions shouted and possibly answered. Taylor, I think there was one other quote here from the Russian president. He said that I want to read back to you. The president of the United States has a clear idea of what he would like to achieve here. He cares about the prosperity of these nations, and he understands that Russia has its own national interests. Today, he said, was a starting point, not only to the solution of the Ukrainian situation, but also to diplomatic relations with the U.S. It seems clear here that he is also, in addition to Ukraine, obviously that was the goal here from the U.S.'s perspective, but kind of wants to reset these U.S. relations and took some subtle comments there to point that out.
Yeah, I mean, it's no, we're not minimizing it by saying that Russia has really isolated itself on the world stage over the last 3.5 years once it invaded Ukraine in 2022. And President Trump seems to be one of the few world leaders, not to mention the most powerful world leader, who is willing to give Vladimir Putin chance after chance after chance. And I thought, as President Trump said, we had an extremely productive meeting and many points were agreed to. There are just very few that are left. And he said, we're going to try to get this over with. We made some really great progress today. I think what's interesting in all of this is that President Trump simultaneously has talked about the awful images coming out of Ukraine as civilian target after civilian target ends up getting hit, while also talking about business opportunities in Russia and the fact that, Putin wants to help his own country, and Trump says, I understand that. You often hear when you speak with not only the world leaders who visit the White House here, but with their staffers and with analysts, that Trump seems to be motivated by the person he speaks with most recently. And I think what's really striking is that he had a virtual call with President Zelensky and European leaders on Wednesday morning ahead of this summit, but now he just met with Putin one-on-one without Zelensky there, and it seems that Putin was able to at least make a good impression with him. And as Josh mentioned, at one point Putin said, or it might have been you mentioning it, at one point Putin said, I believe and I agree with President Trump that had he still been in office in 2022, that this war wouldn't have started. That is a direct appeal to Trump, who repeats that almost daily, especially as he's trying to earn a Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, I mean, the question is that he really, Taylor, he really charmed Trump, and you can tell. I mean, he really charmed Trump there. And, I mean, I would be surprised if folks in Kyiv and in London and in Paris and in Berlin were not feeling particularly anxious at this hour. Cassie, Simeon, let's go over to you. The president President Trump had adjusted the bar over the last few days. What would have been success? What would have not been success? By those guide marks, by those measures, how do you think he did in this, given that we don't know the specifics, but there is no ceasefire? I mean, that is the main headline.
Yeah, and he just said just a few days ago that there would be, quote, severe consequences if Russia didn't agree to a peace deal. And he said he would know within the first 2 minutes whether or not this was going to be a success. And I think it's quite interesting, as you guys have pointed out, that the The president spoke after President Putin. And also, you know, there is a lot of Republicans and Democrats on Capitol Hill that know this war is going to rage on, and there is likely going to be a need for Ukraine to get another aid package from the U.S. And so there has been a shift really in dialogue over the last several weeks as the president seemed to be warming more to the side of Ukraine. Now it seems he's backpedaling and moving more towards the side of Russia. As you said, you know, there is a lot of concern likely happening across the globe at this point. NATO allies concerned about what they just heard. And I also found it incredibly interesting that there were no questions taken, because that is where we would have gleaned perhaps more insight into the conversation between those two men. I think there are a lot of people on Capitol Hill that have a lot of answers. We haven't even really seen a lot of congressional reaction yet, and that could be because they're picking their jaws up off the floor from what they just heard from both President Putin and President Trump.
And I want to bring in Tim Boyer here. Tim, what do you think the reaction to this is going to be from both sides of the aisle here? No ceasefire, very few details. How do you think this is going to go over?
Probably a huge shoulder shrug. I think people are trying to figure out what to mean, you know, what this all means. My colleagues have laid it out really well. I mean, what people did not see is that they did meet for a while. They're supposed to have a lunch. The lunch didn't happen, and the press was abruptly brought in quickly. And we had this news conference where there were little to no details. It seems that perhaps they're very close to something or they're far away. I can't remember seeing a news conference like this where Donald Trump went second, said so little, and then took no questions and abruptly left the room. And so I think people are going to be puzzled about what this may or may not mean. And that's going to be something to watch moving forward. I do think there's going to be some concern or criticism about what some of my colleagues have talked about, that Putin almost buttering him up with the comments about that there wouldn't be a war. Also, he was almost applauding him when he met him on the red carpet before the meetings. And so I think, you know, it's cliche, but there's more questions than answers at this point. There's no question about that.
I want to flag something that our managing editor noted, which is that Trump only 2 days ago at the Kennedy Center said that there will be consequences if Putin didn't end the war in Ukraine during the meeting today. I don't have to say there will be very severe consequences. Obviously, Taylor, I want you to react. He didn't announce any consequences. He announced that they are going to still talk, but he didn't announce a ceasefire, which you think we would have heard about if Putin agreed to that.
Yeah, I think we're all left a bit stumped as to what actually happened. What's going to be really telling is whether or not President Trump speaks with the White House press pool that will be getting back on Air Force One with him and flying back here to the White House. That's supposed to happen in the coming hours. They're supposed to arrive back here early Saturday morning. The president also uses his social media platform, Truth Social, to provide updates. So we're going to be peppering the White House with questions. But as you pointed out, we have no idea of progress being made in terms of details actually achieved. We're right now just basing it off of Putin and Trump's own words that didn't include any information beyond calling things productive.
And we think he's heading home right now. Is that the plan? I think he's going to do an interview first.
I missed the last part of your question, but we believe he's scheduled to come back here to the White House if that's what you were asking. Unclear where President Zelensky factors into all of this. All
right, we'll have to see. Cassie Simeon, Tim Boyum. Cassie Simeon, Tim Boyum, Taylor Populars, thanks so much for your time and for your analysis. Chris Welsh, thanks so much. I'm Josh Robin. We have more news right now on Spectrum News.
This election year is all about New York City. There are 51 council seats up for grabs, races for our next city comptroller and the next public advocate.
Plus, an unprecedented race for mayor. That puts the power in your hands to decide who will run our city.
Our team of political experts will be covering every angle of this election to keep you informed on how it could affect you, so you can feel confident with your decision at the polls.
Stay with Spectrum News New York 1 for Decision 2025, exclusively on Spectrum.
We chose Spectrum Business because every second matters in our operation. We need a network that can move as quickly as we need to.
We are a takeout restaurant. Half our business is online. So we needed something dependable, reliable, with great service.
The state-of-the-art facility depends Queens wants a state-of-the-art network to support classroom engagement.
Join the network made for business with solutions made for every size. Visit spectrum.com/made for business to get started.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time. And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first, we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan. Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
From my time growing up in Queens watching New York One to my time reporting here, I've seen how quickly a story can change. At News All Day, we bring you the news as it's happening, from around the boroughs to local government to your neighborhood. Because our city never stops moving.
3, 2, 1.
Hi, I'm Shannon Ferry with the day's developing stories. But first, stay up to date and informed with News All Day, weekdays from noon to 4.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. You have been watching the coverage from our Spectrum News national team on the Trump-Putin meeting. Both presidents announced there is no peace deal. Meanwhile, in our first story of the night, we're taking a look at 14th Street as it is set to get a makeover. A 2-year study kicks off early next year to reimagine the corridor and make it more pedestrian and bike-friendly. Our transit reporter Samantha Liebman has more in this report.
14th Street has certainly changed over the years, from streetcars to buses to part of the meatpacking district, when actual meat purveyors line the street, not fancy stores, and it's about to get another makeover.
It will be centered around expanding more space for pedestrians and running our buses faster and safer, at the same time that we continue space for loading and unloading. And here, what we know is that a lot of people need more space to walk.
Renderings show ideas of how it could look.
Members of this community, from the business community, from the artists, for the academic institution, they want changes. And we know that this is one of the most busy area where not only New Yorkers, but also visitors, they come here.
The $3 million design project includes $2 million from the city and $1 million combined from both the Meatpacking District and Union Square partnership.
The idea being that if we have a better streetscape, it will attract more shoppers and people walking down the street. More shoppers will attract better retail will attract more shoppers, and the cycle goes on.
Julie Stein, the executive director of the Union Square partnership, says plans were already underway to upgrade Union Square Park, and they saw an opportunity to work with the city to do more. The street already has a busway, so cars are largely off the street. The park itself hasn't been overhauled since 1985. Many who work and live in the area say they welcome more pedestrian space.
I mean, I'm always a fan of making more pedestrian spaces in New York.
I'm all for pedestrian friendly.
As long as you keep parking, I'm fine with that. They can do whatever you want. You know, but make it look nice, make it nice for everybody, make it, you know, where everybody can go walk down the aisle, all the shops, all the eatery, all that stuff. It'll be fine.
The city will also look at what infrastructure projects can be done during the actual construction, so the street won't have to be dug up again. The redesign has $9 million secured from the city council and additional money from the borough president. The city will start taking public input early next year. In Union Square, Samantha Liebman, New York One.
It is time for a break. Coming up, I'll be joined by outgoing City Councilwoman Carlina Rivera to talk about her accomplishments in office and what's next for her career. Stay with us.
My time at New York One has shown me that in the city that never sleeps, the news never stops. So as the day winds down, turn to the rush hour.
Good afternoon, I'm Monica Kirkland.
To catch up on the stories that matter across the 5 boroughs, with in-depth interviews from the city's newsmakers, plus the latest forecast. Catching you up with today, preparing you for tomorrow. right here on The Rush Hour. Weekdays from 4 to 7 p.m.
Are you ready for the ultimate entertainment experience? Spectrum is bringing together the streaming apps you love. Plus, live TV for sports, entertainment, and news. All in one place, across your devices. So no matter when or where you are, it's all here. Spectrum.
I'm Chris Jakovic. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakovic, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our New York City community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
This election year is all about New York City. There are 51 council seats up for grabs, races for our next city comptroller and the next public advocate.
Plus, an unprecedented race for mayor. That puts the power in your hands to decide who will run our city.
Our team of political experts will be covering every angle of this election to keep you informed on how it could affect you, so you can feel confident with your decision at the polls.
Stay with Spectrum News New York 1 for Decision 2025, exclusively on Spectrum.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. After representing parts of Manhattan in the City Council for nearly 8 years, Councilwoman Carlina Rivera has resigned from the job. While Rivera was term limited out of office, her departure comes nearly 4 months before the end of her term. And she joins me now to reflect on her time in the council and talk about what's next. Welcome back to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you are term limited, so you're going to have to find a new job anyway, but it's only August, about 4.5 months left in your term. So why'd you decide to step away now?
Well, it's such a bittersweet moment for me. 8 years in the council. I have really loved the job, and it's become a part of my identity in the best way possible. Born and raised in my district. I'm now raising my 1- and 2-year-old sons there. And I've really enjoyed being a public servant. Now we have a new Democratic nominee. He's sure to win the general. He's going to be able to lead our district early, now that I'm leaving my post early. And I now get to lead the nation's largest affordable housing association. And the time certainly feels right.
So talk about the job. This is the New York State Association for Affordable Housing. It's a trade association, right? So it represents affordable housing developers, right? What's the mission of the group?
The mission is simple. They are a mission-driven organization. They want to preserve and build affordable housing. They're really well known for their advocacy on housing policy and also for the conferences that they do. They do affordable housing conferences upstate and downstate, really focusing on the issues affecting New Yorkers across the counties.
So, I mean, affordable housing is obviously such an important topic and has been an important topic, you know, in some of the campaigns and so forth. You were a supporter of the City of Yes, right, which was to change zoning laws in order to make it easier to get housing built all around the city. Is it more of that type of thing where we're trying to relax regulations maybe and just build more housing to try to build our way out of this crisis?
You know, I've always made it a cornerstone of my career to build and preserve affordable housing. I think preservation is really, really important as well, and I've tried to do that in my district and citywide. City of Yes was a great creative solution. It's something that was really overdue as well. I remember in my term, I did the Soho-NoHo rezoning, and we've since looked at how do we get every neighborhood to do their fair share. Why NYSAFA is such a powerful organization. They have so much talent and credibility within the membership organization. You have lenders, people in financial services, affordable housing developers, and talented people who are really devoted to New York State and who want to see us thrive. And supply is important. It's on the campaign trails. It's what everyone is talking about. And we really do need hundreds of thousands of units to really keep up with the population and for people that move here, for families to thrive. So I feel like the time is now. It's really on everyone's lips, this topic. And this is the organization to really ensure that we're building coalitions and pushing good, sensible policy.
Let's talk about some of the highlights of your time in office. You passed dozens of pieces of legislation. If you had to pick your proudest accomplishment, whether legislation or some kind of legacy project or really anything from your time in office, what are the biggest highlights?
All right, 44 local laws. It's hard to pick one. I've had really historic bills on transit, ensuring that pedestrians and cyclists are safer. We passed the nation's first abortion access fund. I really want to highlight Civic Hall, which is a civic tech and a landmark workforce development center. And I also want to mention the Lower East Side Girls Club, the New York Poets Cafe, making sure that we renovated the Delacorte, which just reopened to the public. And really affordable housing has been really a landmark achievement. I will say the the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project is something that is still underway, and one of those things that, that you want to be invited back for the ribbon cutting. Right. You spend so much time on it, but really the housing piece started when I was an organizer in my own community, and now making this transition, finding the common ground that we all think that people deserve safe, stable housing. That's what makes the transition to NYSAFA such a natural step.
That was more than one highlight, but I'll let it go. What about the biggest challenge from your time in the council, whether it was any particular episode or maybe a part of the job that turned out to be harder than maybe you were expecting?
Well, the hardest part right now is leaving the job, I would say. The staff there, my colleagues are incredible. We also have this staff, my own staff in my district, but in the city council itself, so many talented public servants. I'd say probably one of the biggest challenges is really trying to figure out how you finance some of these projects, and how do you also do it while having a federal government that continues to threaten really reasonable programs like Section 8, which would gut communities and counties across the state. Many people upstate are reliant in terms of their rentals on HUD assistance. So it's really been that financing piece and unclogging that pipeline in HPD to make sure that we close on projects and build housing. That's been the toughest part, is always the finance piece.
All right, so now you're leaving. You can speak freely and tell us what you really think, right? Let me ask you about Mayor Adams. What do you think of the mayor and this increasingly contentious relationship that he seems to have with the council? He's vetoing pieces of legislation left and right.
You know, it's unfortunate because we are co-equal branches of government. We've been able to ensure that we've passed 125,000 units of housing. We've secured $8 billion in capital. These are things where we work together. So there's going to be contention. There's always going to be debate. There should be checks and balances and accountability. It's unfortunate, when you're challenged like that. And I think the speaker has done a remarkable job. She has led the city and united a diverse body in a way that I'm not seeing with frequency across the country. And I'm really proud to have worked with her and my colleagues. So I hope that we can make peace, get it done, and also make sure that we're putting New Yorkers first.
What are your thoughts on the mayor's race? What do you think of Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic nominee?
I think he's a great guy. He's the Democratic nominee. He got there by putting forward a campaign that really discussed how we have to continue to lay the foundation to create a city that is more affordable. And people really responded to that. He's going to have a race ahead of him. I'm excited to bring him in and talk to some of the members at NYSAFA. I've actually already spoken to a member of his team, having that conversation. And it's that listening tour that he's going on. It's that openness to speaking to different stakeholders and allies that really is assuring people that he wants to build a better New York.
You're also active with the Department of Corrections and legislation on Rikers and on other issues. What happens going forward with Rikers? I mean, this is one of the biggest issues that's going to face the incoming mayor. The plan is to close Rikers, but not a lot has been done in that direction, at least by Mayor Adams.
That's such a tragic issue because we had a mandate to close Rikers, and right now we are not on track to meet that legal mandate. We have over 7,000 people that are incarcerated, people that have been diagnosed with a mental illness, people that have cycled in and out of homelessness and incarceration. I just passed the bill on Thursday, my last bill, to really expand the criteria for supportive housing, which is what people need with mental health issues for wraparound services. We need to build more of that too. And it's a place where it has just become a real humanitarian issue. So I'm hoping that we can figure out how to reduce the population, invest in alternatives to incarceration, actually get people to court, and then make sure that they're going on to live a more stable life, because recidivism it's not working in terms of what we have in place now, and we need to really think of public safety for the city in a more holistic way.
You mentioned your successor, likely successor, Harvey Epstein, the assemblyman who won the Democratic primary, we expect will likely win in November. So Harvey Epstein will take your seat if and when he wins the election in November. Just a few seconds left, but what advice do you have for Harvey Epstein if he wins your seat?
To always, put our constituents first, especially those who I feel like are disenfranchised systemically, and those are the families living in NYCHA, people that are living in low-income housing. I come from Section 8 housing. I grew up with a single mom. She worked really hard, and it was that subsidy that got me to where I am. So just, remember those folks who are working so hard, multiple jobs, and to enjoy it. It's one of the best jobs in the city. It was the honor and privilege of a lifetime, and to work with really smart people on great policy.
All right, Councilwoman Carlina Rivera, outgoing Councilwoman Carlina Rivera, you've still got the seat for a little while yet. Thank you so much and congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, it is time now for a break. Coming up, we will turn back to the race for mayor when I'm joined by two top reporters in our Friday Reporters Roundtable. Stay with us.
If it's the theater you love, then we've got just the ticket. On Stage is your all-access pass to Broadway, off-Broadway, and the best live entertainment in the city. The interviews and backstage exclusives. All that's made On Stage the go-to source for entertainment for over 20 years. Join us every Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m. for On Stage. Also available on the Spectrum News app. I'll see you at the theater. Exclusively on Spectrum.
I'm kind of a deal hunter. I like to make sure we got the best deal.
We used a Spectrum savings calculator before. I learned that since we're existing Spectrum Internet customers, we get a mobile line for a year.
Having a line for a year would be amazing. I looked at you and I said, how is the savings so substantial?
Switch and save with one mobile line included with your internet service. Backed by the Spectrum commitment to keep you connected.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
My father was a New York City firefighter. My mission, like his, is to serve New Yorkers in a city that doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Being with New York One since the beginning, I'm now honored to join you even earlier each weeknight. Starting at 8 with New York Tonight, we'll explore the latest news developments, followed by New York One at 10 to wrap up your day. So join me each weeknight starting at 8 right here on New York One.
This election year is all about New York City.
There are 51 council seats up for grabs, races for our next city controller and next public advocate,
plus an unprecedented race for mayor.
Stay with Spectrum News New York One for Decision 2025, exclusively on Spectrum.
Councilmember Mamdani is a man who can obviously afford rent. He's a man of means.
Know a fraud when we see one.
Rent-stabilized apartments, low-income apartments should be just for that, low-income people.
These units, these buildings, these tenants are but a political pawn.
This anti-capitalist rhetoric is very destructive and dangerous.
Things that were asked of me when I was running, I produced them.
If he becomes the mayor, I will stand up and defend him against Donald Trump.
What separates me from him, one of the key differences is that I mean what I say.
Before Mamdani won the Democratic nomination and beat Cuomo, he was available 24/7, 365. Now he's just like all the rest of the candidates, hide and seek.
We're focused on what I do as a candidate. I got a great legal team. They're going to handle the CFV case.
So I stand here as the Democratic nominee in clear and sincere opposition to the Trump agenda that is preying upon New Yorkers borough to borough.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. That was just some of the things we heard this week from the campaign trail in the race for mayor. And joining me now to discuss all of this and the rest of the week's top headlines are two top journalists in our Friday Reporters Roundtable. Jeff Colton covers City Hall for Politico New York, and Rebecca Lewis is a senior state politics reporter at City and State New York. Thank you both for being here. So let's start with Zohran Mamdani's 5-borough tour. You saw all those different sound bites from him at these different events. Jeff, I'll start with you. What was this all about? I mean, it was billed as a anti-Trump tour, and he also took every opportunity to tie Donald Trump to Andrew Cuomo. And he picked up a bunch of endorsements along the way as well.
That's exactly right. I mean, we just heard Curtis Lewa say that Mamdani wasn't available. I think he said that over the weekend. This week, Mamdani was extremely available. I mean, he was in all 5 boroughs and announcing endorsements. And yes, this was basically just a way to almost relaunch his general election campaign. In fact, this weekend, he's starting again his field operation. I know that he's sending out a bunch of volunteers to knock doors. And so, yeah, you know, he kind of took July. It was slow. He was doing a lot of private meetings. He went to Uganda, famously. And now this is basically the return to it and saying, you know, I'm back. I'm going to be everywhere. I'm campaigning. And yeah, I think it was pretty effective.
One theory I've heard also is that by, you know, showing up at these events with all these different elected officials who are supporting him, maybe it would put a little bit of pressure on some of these other high-profile, maybe more mainstream Democrats who have yet to publicly back him. I'm talking about Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and Governor Kathy Hochul. And Rebecca, you cover Albany. I feel like I asked you this the last time you were here. Is Kathy Hochul going to come out and actually endorse Zohran Mamdani? I mean, she's been saying nice things about him, right?
She has been saying relatively nice things about him. She hasn't been bashing him, and as you know, the clip that we just saw, she said that she would defend him against Donald Trump. I think that a lot of people are asking her to endorse, but when I was sort of looking into the issue, it was sort of reminded that she hasn't always in the past endorsed mayoral candidates anywhere. So she certainly didn't with the last socialist candidate that we had. And, you know, I think she endorsed in the Syracuse mayor's race a couple years ago about 2, maybe 3 days before the election. So it's not super unusual. It's just this might be a particularly high-profile case. She hasn't endorsed any of the other mayoral candidates that are up for election this year either who are running on the Democratic line. So she might not, but she certainly seems like she's willing to work with him.
We also learned this week that former President Barack Obama placed a call to Zohran Mamdani not long after he won the primary. This was in a New York Times story the other day. What are we to make of the Obama-Mamdani phone call?
You know, I admit, I saw a take online. This is not my original thinking. But the idea is basically that, you know, Zohran Mamdani is the hot new thing in the Democratic Party, and Barack Obama, he's kind of, you know, he's a little bit out of politics now, and he kind of wants to stay in the game, and so he just wanted to talk to Mamdani, you know? I mean, I think it's that simple. I know a lot of people were reading very deeply into this about whether the, you know, Obama coalition is trying to co-opt Mamdani. No, I see it pretty simply as Obama is effectively a political celebrity at this point, and he wants to talk to the other political celebrity, who is now Zohran Mamdani. So, yeah, I don't read too deeply into it politically, but I do think that, yes, this adds a little more pressure to folks like Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, who to just like get on the train. You know, I mean, Jeffries, I guess Jeffries considers himself to be a national political figure. He has to be concerned about maintaining or winning back the House of Representatives in 2026. So he's very nervous about, you know, moving too far to the left. But on the other hand, like, come on, man, like you're a Brooklyn Democrat and Mamdani just won your district by a lot. Like it kind of shouldn't be a difficult question to endorse the Democratic nominee. And I can understand why a lot of New York City Democrats are basically frustrated.
We haven't yet talked about rent stabilization. I mean, you heard a lot of sound bites in that supercut there. The story, of course, this week, Andrew Cuomo said Zohran Mamdani should give up his rent-stabilized apartment because he makes too much money. And then in a counterattack, Mamdani said Cuomo should release the list of clients, which, I mean, we don't really know how Andrew Cuomo has been making money the past few years since he left office, right?
We barely knew where he was living. This is an unusual line of it. Well, I won't say it's unusual. It's quite common for politicians, candidates, to go after their opponents over where they're living. It's just usually the attack is they're living somewhere in a luxury development and they're disconnected from the people. This time it's saying that the roughly 1 million rent-stabilized units in the city, which are not all affordable. Some of them are at about market rate. That they should be only going to low-income people, which is also interesting considering that the vast majority of even the means-tested affordable housing, a lot of it is aimed toward middle-income people who aren't very, very impoverished, and we've seen pushes to get more of that housing, that means-tested housing, to be reserved for very low-income people. So it comes off a little disingenuous that we're attacking a lawmaker for living in an apartment that is not terribly affordable to the average New Yorker, $2,300 a month for a one-bedroom. It's not a paradise. Right. Mm-hmm. So.
And right, I don't think Cuomo's doing this because of the technical details. It's a cultural grievance thing. I mean, he is basically saying that Mamdani is the, you know, candidate of the gentrifiers, and he's trying to appeal to New Yorkers that might be angry about that.
Right, he's the spoiled rich kid taking advantage of the system. All right, you guys, hold it there. We got to take a quick break. I will have much more with these reporters when we come back. Stay with us.
As native New Yorkers, the weekend team at New York One is here to be a voice for your community.
Our focus is to uphold the journalistic principles our network was built on.
Using our years of local reporting experience to take on important issues across the 5 boroughs. Morning, noon, or night, it's in-depth coverage that prepares you for the week ahead.
Spectrum News New York One, weekends, starting Saturdays at 7 a.m.
Available on all your devices exclusively on Spectrum.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day with in-depth coverage of the day's developing news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following this morning.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Some morning sunshine possible, clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One, weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum customers.
From my time growing up in Queens watching New York One to my time reporting here, I've seen how quickly a story can change. At News All Day, we bring you the news as it's happening, from around the boroughs to local government to your neighborhood. Because our city never stops moving.
3, 2, 1. Hi, I'm Shannon Ferry with the day's developing stories. But first,
stay up to date and informed with News All Day, weekdays from noon to 4.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. I'm once again joined by my Friday Reporters Roundtable, Jeff Colton of Politico New York and Rebecca Lewis of City and State New York. So let's switch gears and talk about Mayor Adams for a moment, who's also running in this election. He's been lately vetoing almost every piece of legislation that the City Council has been passing, which is kind of unusual. Jeff, talk about what's happening here. I mean, it seems like part of it is maybe part of his re-election campaign trying to frame himself as the more moderate while the City Council is undertaking all these sort of radical initiatives.
Right? I think so, yeah. And he has been very out front about that. He has said, oh, now I think the council is being too radical. And like, it's kind of a change in rhetoric for him. I mean, look, he's always thought that the council is to his left. That's been very clear. But I mean, 4 vetoes in 2 weeks is unprecedented. He has never vetoed that much. And yeah, I think it's totally a campaign thing. It's also a first deputy mayor, Randy Mastro thing. Mastro came in like a wrecking ball. He has really tried to be more aggressive, more out front, and pushing Adams to be more, have more conflicts and push, you know, the left. And so these are just bills that, you know, maybe 2 years ago he would have just let happen, but he's now putting a foot down to create that conflict, which he thinks will benefit him.
The latest proposal from the mayor that they rolled out yesterday was involuntary commitment of people with substance abuse disorders. I mean, this is something that they're already doing with people with severe mental illness. And Rebecca, this has been an issue on the state level, right? Where Kathy Hochul supported involuntary commitment of those with mental illness. What about this sort of expansion of that to people with substance abuse problems?
I mean, we saw the city expand the involuntary commitment laws, at least to a small level, before the state stepped in this past year in the budget to similarly expand them for people with severe mental illnesses. This is sort of a new area, I suppose. No one has really talked about expanding involuntary commitment to those with struggling with substance abuse. And it does raise some questions because you have a lot of mental health experts who say, you know, we should not be targeting those who are mentally ill. They are generally not a danger to other people. They're usually more likely to get hurt themselves. But then you do have, you know, people on the streets who might be struggling with a substance abuse addiction who are acting erratically that you might want to check into treatment. So it's definitely, if nothing else, I think it will speak to a lot of New Yorkers who either see someone who is mentally ill or someone that they believe is, you know, actively high or on drugs and acting out and making them uncomfortable.
I mean, there was pushback to this, right? Almost immediately from civil rights groups. I mean, you know, it's hard to know, first of all, if someone is on drugs just on site, and then, you know, who's making these calls? Is it police officers? There's a lot of questions here.
Definitely, and frankly, these questions probably won't get answered because this is the mayor saying, this is what I want to do in the 2026 legislative session. And I mean, let's be honest, there is a very, very small percentage chance that this mayor is going to be mayor in 2026. So in a way, this is all just kind of a political push. You know, maybe he's hoping the next mayor, who likely is not going to be him, is going to pick it up and run with it. It's an interesting proposal, but yeah, it's just, I don't think the mayor is going to be the one seeing this over the finish line if it happens.
Let's talk about the governor's race. And Rebecca, I'm looking at you again, since you're the expert on all things Albany. There was a Siena College poll this week. Kathy Hochul, her approval rating ticked up
a little bit,
and she's leading in a head-to-head matchup with Elise Stefanik, but that lead sort of shrank from the last time we had a Siena poll a couple of months ago.
Yeah, you know, it definitely shrank. That could be attributed to Mike Lawler saying that he isn't going to run, and that narrows down the potential maybe splitting of Republican opinions on who to support in that race. You know, there might have been some I don't knows if between Stefanik and Hochul, who now are for Stefanik, as Stefanik has certainly been on attack mode against the governor. I think her favorite phrase has become the worst governor in America. You see that in all of her press releases, half of her tweets. So there's very much a ramping up by Stefanik, who has not officially announced yet. She's expected to, I believe, in November. But the governor...
I get like at least a couple emails in my inbox every day from Elise Stefanik attacking Kathy Hochul.
But it seems like the governor is taking this seriously. She just appointed her chief of staff, Stacey Lynch, to serve as a senior advisor on her re-election campaign, which I think really speaks to her desire to have a smart New York City, or not New York City, but at least a New York intelligent team around her, which she got hit for the first time for not necessarily having.
Yeah. All right, guys, we are going to have to leave it there. Rebecca Lewis, Jeff Colton, thank you both for joining me tonight. That is going to do it for tonight's show. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a great evening. We will see you the next time on Inside City Hall.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. You've done with the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s. But showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Exclusively on Spectrum.
We chose Spectrum Business because every second matters in our operation. We need a network that can move as quickly as we need to.
We've built some clientele that are not local, and live streaming is the way we connect.
We are a takeout restaurant. You order your food online, half our business is online. So we needed something dependable, reliable, with great service.
The state-of-the-art facility depends upon having a state-of-the-art network to support classroom engagement.
When we had our grand opening, we needed to be able to operate from day one with ease.
Join the network made for business, with solutions made for every size. Visit spectrum.com/made-for-business to get started.
This election year is all about New York City. There are 51 council seats up for grabs, races for our next city comptroller and the next public advocate.
Plus, an unprecedented race for mayor. That puts the power in your hands to decide who will run our city.
Our team of political experts will be covering every angle of this election to keep you informed on how